Before we start, please make sure to like this video and hit this subscribe button, so you never miss a story like this. And also comments where you are watching from, how many sons and daughters you have. Thanks. My name is Riley Monroe, and I wasn't always like this. I wasn't always strong, or confident, or brave enough to walk away from a man who belittled me in front of strangers. But that all changed the night he humiliated me for the last time. And now, 5 years later, I'm back. But this time, I'm someone he would never dare laugh at again. You really gonna wear that? Jackson spat across the restaurant table, loud enough that the couple next to us turned their heads. You look like a busted can of biscuits trying to squeeze into a dress 2 sizes too small. I froze, my fork halfway to my mouth. What did you just say? I whispered, barely able to breathe. He rolled his eyes and leaned back in his seat like he was doing me a favor by even showing up tonight. I said, "You look ridiculous. Why would you embarrass me like this on our anniversary?" I looked down at my plate. I hadn't eaten all day. I'd starved myself just so I could feel good about ordering a single meal tonight. I'd tried on 5 different outfits. Cried in the mirror. Tucked, sucked in, layered Spanx under my dress just to feel like I was enough. But none of that mattered to him. He reached across the table and grabbed my hand, smiling that fake, smug smile he wore every time he wanted to control the damage. Hey, don't pout now. I'm just being honest. You asked if you looked okay. I'm just answering. The waitress had just arrived with our drinks, and I could feel the heat rise in my face. Her eyes flicked between us, her smile faltered. Would you like lemon with your water, ma'am? She asked gently, pretending not to notice the tears brimming in my eyes. I'm fine, I mumbled. But Jackson wasn't done. He waved her off and chuckled like we were old friends and on some joke. She doesn't need lemon. She needs a treadmill. The words slapped me. People were watching. Staring. Whispering. I felt like I was shrinking under the weight of every judgmental glance in the room. I'd been embarrassed before, sure. Jackson had always had a sharp tongue. He made jokes about my body at home, little digs when no one was around. He called it tough love. But never like this. Never in public. Never where my dignity had to die in front of strangers. I stood up slowly, my chair scraping against the hardwood floor. My hands trembled as I reached for my purse. Riley, he said, what are you doing? Sit down. Don't make a scene. But the scene was already made. I was done being quiet. Done making myself smaller. Done starving, apologizing, and pretending his words weren't slowly destroying me. You humiliated me, I said, my voice cracking as I spoke. He leaned forward, scoffing. God, you're so sensitive. That's half the problem. You can't take a joke. You used to laugh with me. What happened to you? You did, I snapped. You happened to me. For the first time in years, I saw it. A flicker of uncertainty in his eyes. Like maybe, just maybe. He realized the damage he'd done. But he covered it up fast. Oh, come on, he said, louder now, trying to take control of the narrative. So what, you're gonna storm out? Be dramatic? It's always about you, isn't it? And then he said it. The sentence I would never forget. No man wants a woman who lets herself go. I married someone hot. Not this. There it was. In full view. Every rotten thing he really thought about me, laid bare for the world to hear. I didn't cry. Not then. Something inside me snapped instead. A silence deeper than rage settled in my chest. And I knew, in that moment, this wasn't love. It never had been. I didn't scream. I didn't throw my drink or cause a scene. I just whispered the only thing that needed to be said. Watch me disappear. And that's exactly what I did. That night, I packed everything I owned into 2 suitcases and left without a word. No note. No text. Nothing. He woke up to an empty bed and no forwarding address. And I made sure no one, not even my closest friends, knew where I was. I needed time. Space. Freedom. And most of all, I needed to find me again. The girl he mocked? She doesn't exist anymore. Because 5 years can change a person. 5 years of silence. Of sweat, and tears, and therapy, and finding power in places I didn't even know existed. I moved across the country. Changed my name. Built a life from scratch. I trained. I studied. I transformed my body, not because of him, but because I deserved to feel strong in my own skin. I started coaching women who'd been through what I went through. I turned pain into purpose. And in the process, I became someone unrecognizable. Until fate brought me back. Back to the very city I left behind. Back to the man who thought he broke me. Only this time, he doesn't even know it's me. And I'm about to walk into the room, into his world, into the job where he thinks he's the boss, and show him exactly what happens when the woman you humiliate disappears, only to return as your worst nightmare. Because I didn't come back for closure. I came back for a reckoning. And this time, I'm not afraid to be seen. 5 years later, I stood in the elevator of a gleaming downtown high-rise, watching the numbers light up one by one. My palms were steady. My breath, slow. And my reflection in the mirrored wall beside me? Unrecognizable. Gone was the woman he called bloated and soft. Gone was the desperate housewife clinging to a man who chipped away at her soul like it was nothing. In her place stood a woman who had faced hell, and built a business empire out of its ashes. I'd bought his company last month. Quietly. Strategically. Through a network of acquisitions so layered and confidential, Jackson still had no idea the woman signing his paychecks was his ex-wife. His world was about to shift, and not because I wanted revenge. No. I didn't want to hurt him. I wanted him to watch me win. The elevator chimed. Floor 36. The doors opened into a reception area bathed in natural light and cold tension. My heels clicked with purpose as I walked past the assistant who didn't recognize me either. No one here did. Not yet. Excuse me, ma'am, she called. Can I help you? I have a meeting with the executive team, I said calmly, not slowing my pace. I believe they'd been expecting the new CEO. Her eyes widened slightly. She checked her screen, then stood immediately. Yes, of course. Right this way, Ms. Monroe. Ms. Monroe. Still not Riley Carter. Not the woman who took Jackson's last name and wore it like shackles. I stepped into the boardroom to the sound of polite applause from men who didn't know my history, but soon would. I shook hands, nodded at my partners, and took my place at the head of the table. The double doors opened again. Late, as always. Jackson Carter walked in. He was older now. Still wearing arrogance like cologne. Still believing he owned every room he walked into. Until his eyes landed on me. He blinked. Then blinked again. I saw it, the twitch in his jaw, the confusion stirring behind that smug expression. Something in him was shifting. A flicker of memory. But he couldn't place it. Not yet. I was too far from the woman he once mocked to be real in his mind. He turned to the CFO, laughing awkwardly. Wait, where's Langston? I thought he was taking over as CEO. No, I said clearly, rising from my seat. Langston retired. Effective last Friday. I took over this week. His head snapped toward me. The room quieted. I stepped forward and extended a hand. Riley Monroe. New CEO of Carter and Lowell. He didn't take my hand. He just stared. The blood drained from his face, and for a long moment, he looked like he'd seen a ghost. I held his gaze and added, soft and sharp all at once, nice to meet you, Mr. Carter. Though I have a feeling we've met before. He opened his mouth. Closed it again. He was unraveling, right there in front of everyone. Not because he recognized me fully, yet, but because his instincts were screaming something his brain couldn't decode. I'm sorry, he muttered, regaining just enough control to fake a smile. You look really familiar. I smiled. Do I? The meeting began. Numbers. Forecasts. Growth strategies. I conducted it with precision, with strength, with elegance. I addressed the board like I'd built the foundation brick by brick, because I had. Every word I spoke held years of hard work behind it. Every decision I'd made on my way up had been carved with blood, betrayal, and resilience. And the whole time, Jackson watched me. Squirmed. Sweated. Tried to figure it out. Until the end. The meeting adjourned. People began to file out. But I stayed. And so did he. He waited by the window, arms crossed, like he was building up the nerve to ask the one question echoing in his head. Have we met before? He finally asked. I walked over slowly, my heels deliberate and echoing in the now empty room. I stood inches away from him. Our eyes locked. Yes, I said, voice low but firm. We were married once. His breath caught. I saw it all hit him. Like a wrecking ball to the chest. Riley, he whispered. I tilted my head. The one you called a busted can of biscuits in a packed restaurant on your anniversary. The one you mocked for gaining weight. The woman you laughed at, until she disappeared. He was silent. Utterly stunned. I smiled again, but this one wasn't for him. It was for me. 5 years ago, I vanished, I continued. Without a trace. No one knew where I went. But I wasn't lost, Jackson. I was becoming. His mouth parted. You look. I didn't know. I didn't recognize. Of course you didn't, I cut in. You never really saw me to begin with. He took a step forward, as if closing the distance could change the past. I made mistakes, I know that. But Riley, I raised a hand. I didn't come here for an apology. I came here because this company is mine now. And from this moment on, I decide who stays in this building. He looked like he was about to argue, but he didn't. Because for once, the man who always had something cruel to say, had no words. I turned away, walking toward the door. But just before I stepped out, I looked back one last time. Oh, and Jackson? I said coolly. He looked up, eyes wide. Next time you want to comment on a woman's body, you should remember, she just might own your entire world one day. And then I walked out. Head high. Heart whole. Because this wasn't revenge. It was the start of my reign. A man like Jackson doesn't fall all at once. They crumble in layers, slowly, bitterly, with every illusion of control being peeled back like skin under fire. The next morning, he knocked on my glass office door like he still owned the place. Like somehow, I'd peel off the mask and say, just kidding. You were right to mock me. Want your throne back? I didn't even look up. Come in, I said flatly. He stepped inside, closing the door with the kind of care men use when they're trying not to wake a monster. But I wasn't a monster, I was just the mirror now. The one thing he couldn't escape. I didn't sleep, he blurted, pacing already. I can't believe it's really you. I didn't offer a seat. I didn't offer sympathy. I simply raised an eyebrow and replied, believe it. He stopped pacing, staring at me. Riley, what happened to you? I set down my pen. Slowly. Deliberately. You mean, how did the woman you mocked, humiliated, and discarded, become the woman signing your paychecks? He flinched. Just a little. But I saw it. No, he muttered. That's not what I meant. Isn't it? He tried again. Look, I know I wasn't perfect. But you disappeared. No note. No call. I thought you were dead? I finished. That would have been easier for you, right? A tragic ending you could twist into sympathy for yourself. Poor Jackson, his wife just vanished. But I didn't die, Jackson. I lived. For the first time. I stood now. Let him see me. All of me. The confidence. The poise. The woman who didn't apologize for her silence, her scars, or her strength. I left because every day with you was like drowning in shallow water. I left because you made me feel like my body was a problem, my dreams were a joke, and my love was a burden. He dropped into the nearest chair like someone had taken the wind out of him. I didn't know you were unhappy, he said quietly. I laughed once, dry and sharp. Of course you didn't. Because you never asked. You were too busy making sure I knew you were unhappy. That I didn't measure up. That I wasn't what you signed up for. He looked up now. Genuinely, stupidly confused. I thought you loved me, he said. I did, I replied. More than you'll ever know. That's why it hurt so much when you looked at me like I disgusted you. His eyes dropped to the floor. He couldn't hold my gaze anymore. So I turned away and walked to the window, watching the city buzz beneath us like it didn't know a storm was building on the 36th floor. I built something, Jackson. Not just a company. A life. A self. The woman you see now isn't for sale, isn't starving for your praise, and isn't stupid enough to fall for your regret. He stood again, desperate now. I'm not trying to win you back. I'm just, God, I don't even know what I'm doing. Neither did I said, looking over my shoulder. When I packed a bag and left in the middle of the night, I had no plan. Just pain. But pain becomes power when you refuse to let it define you. Silence stretched between us. Then he asked the question I knew would come. Why come back? Why buy this company? Why not just move on? I turned fully now. And for the first time I walked toward him. I did move on, I said. I came back because there are women here who eat lunch at their desks, afraid to be seen eating at all. Women who've been passed over for promotions because someone like you said, she's not the right look. I came back for them. To change this place. To tear it apart and rebuild it in the image of someone who actually knows what it's like to be broken down and still stand up straighter than ever. He looked terrified now. And finally, I saw the crack spread across the mask he always wore. You're not going to fire me, are you? He asked, voice barely above a whisper. I leaned in close, too close. No, Jackson, I said softly. Firing you would be mercy. He swallowed hard. I want you to stay. I want you to sit through meetings while your ideas get overruled by people you used to talk over. I want you to watch interns pass you in rank. I want you to feel what it's like to be small, in a building you used to run. His face drained of all color. And I smiled. Consider it a masterclass in humility, I added. Then I stepped back. You're dismissed. He didn't argue. He just walked out, shoulders tight, like every step burned. I returned to my desk and picked up my phone. Pressed a button. Cynthia, bring in the Carter file. I want to restructure his division by end of week. Because the truth was, this wasn't just about Jackson. This was about every woman who's ever been told she was too much and not enough in the same breath. This was about the weight of every cruel word he ever threw at me, finally landing on his shoulders. And I wasn't done. Not even close. Jackson didn't waste time. By the end of the week, little signs started showing up. My assistant being pulled into random HR meetings. Memos sent without my signature. Data errors in presentations I hadn't approved. It was textbook sabotage, cheap, juvenile tactics, but with just enough polish to make someone doubt themselves. He thought I'd crack under the pressure. That I'd start second-guessing myself. That I'd snap. But he forgot one thing. The woman he broke before? She's gone. The woman standing here now? She's already survived hell. This was just smoke and mirrors. Still, I played the game. I let the emails pile. I let him think I didn't notice. I even let the board question a few of my calls, because sometimes the best way to catch a snake is to let it slither a little. But the real test came on Friday. Boardroom. 11 a.m. A full-room presentation. High stakes. Jackson's department was set to present a proposal. A massive client acquisition pitch I had greenlit under careful conditions. The team walked in nervous, buzzing, but I knew something was off. Then I saw it. He was in the presenter's seat. Not the team lead I had appointed. Not the woman who had worked 3 months building the strategy. No, Jackson had taken the lead, and erased her name from the title slide. "Morning, everyone," he began, voice smooth, smug. "This is the culmination of a strong collaborative effort, and I'm excited to share the final vision." I didn't speak. I let him talk. I let him strut. But I watched the young woman at the end of the table, Rachel, her face pale, her eyes darting between me and the screen. When the presentation ended, there was a pause. The kind that feels like thunder in your chest. One of the board members leaned forward. "Impressive. Clean. But I'm confused, wasn't Rachel the lead on this account?" Silence. Jackson cleared his throat. "She contributed, of course. But I stepped in to polish the execution. For clarity's sake." Clarity. That was the word that finally pushed me over. I rose from my chair. Slowly. Intentionally. "Clarity," I echoed, my voice cutting across the room like a blade. Funny. Because it seems very clear to me that Rachel was erased. That someone felt threatened enough to steal her voice and call it collaboration. He opened his mouth, but I held up a hand. "No. You don't get to speak right now." I turned to the board. "We will not build a company where credit is stolen. Where the louder voice tramples the smarter one. Rachel was the architect of this pitch, and whether or not Jackson can handle that truth is irrelevant." I turned now to Rachel directly. "You did brilliant work. And you're getting the promotion he thought belonged to him." Gasps. A stunned silence. Jackson jumped to his feet. "You can't do that. I've been here for—" "I can," I cut in coldly, "and I just did." I leaned in closer to him now, letting the heat rise just enough. "You thought this would break me. That if you undermined me, I'd start to spiral again. But let me make something crystal clear, Jackson, I've already been broken by you once. That version of me would have crumbled. But the woman standing in front of you now? She knows her worth, and she doesn't need anyone's permission to own her power." His jaw clenched. His pride couldn't handle it. But that wasn't my problem anymore. I walked back to my chair, sat down, and looked to the board. Any questions? There were none. Because the message had been delivered loud and clear. And for the first time, I wasn't shaking. Later that night, I sat alone in my corner office. The skyline glowing. The city humming beneath me like a quiet victory song. I thought about all the nights I cried in silence. The times I questioned my reflection. The cruel little jokes Jackson made in front of our friends. The sideways glances when I walked into a room. All of that pain had shaped me, but it no longer defined me. I didn't just rebuild my body. I didn't just change my face or wardrobe. I rebuilt myself. From the bones up. Stronger. Sharper. Unapologetically whole. My phone buzzed. It was a message from Rachel. "Thank you for seeing me. Really seeing me? I stared at that for a long moment. Because I remembered what it felt like to be invisible. And now? I wasn't invisible anymore. The gala was everything Jackson used to live for. The glittering lights, the red carpet rolled out, the rich and powerful sipping champagne like water, pretending their smiles were real. I remember standing next to him at events like these, hidden behind his shadow, clutching my purse like armor, praying no one would look too closely at me. Or worse, look at him, then look at me, and wonder how he ended up with someone like me. But this time, the narrative was mine. This wasn't just any gala, it was the 10th anniversary of the company Jackson and his partners built. A self-indulgent celebration of their so-called legacy. I'd been invited as a keynote speaker, not because of him, but in spite of him. As the newly appointed head of our largest division, my name was on the program. Bold. Centered. Unavoidable. And when I stepped onto that stage, silence fell. Not because of my name. Not even because of my title. But because he didn't recognize me. I saw it. The moment his eyes landed on me and then darted to the pamphlet in his hand like it had to be a mistake. He leaned over to whisper to a colleague, probably asking if that was really her. Yes, Jackson. It's me. Just not the version you left bruised and voiceless. My heels clicked across the stage floor like thunder. I stood at the podium. Took a slow breath. And smiled. Then I spoke. When people talk about success, they often forget to mention the scars. The nights you cry in secret. The moments you doubt your own voice. The times someone tells you you're not enough, and you believe them. My voice didn't shake. Not once. Someone once told me I was too soft. Too emotional. Too big. He made jokes about my weight in public. He rolled his eyes at my dreams. He told me, and others, that I was lucky to have him. That no one else would ever want me. I paused. His face was pale now. But I wasn't done. What he didn't know was that pain has a way of becoming power. That the woman he tried to erase would someday step onto a stage he could never reach. Gasps scattered across the crowd. But I kept going. Let me say this to every woman who's ever been made to feel small: you do not owe anyone your silence. You do not have to apologize for your body, your voice, your ambition, your fire. My hands gripped the podium now. Steady. Certain. You are allowed to take up space. And when they try to laugh at you, when they mock your scars or your weight or your dreams, you look them in the eye and say, "You will not write my story." I will. Thunderous applause. A standing ovation. And yet, none of that compared to the moment I stepped down and walked right past him. He grabbed my arm. Desperate. Weak. Wait, he said. That speech, was that about me? I turned. Slowly. No, I said. That speech was about me. You were just the footnote. His mouth opened. Then closed. No words. Just silence. Like the kind I used to drown in. He tried to follow me out into the lobby. Asked if we could talk. Said I looked amazing, like the compliment was a key he thought still fit. You left without a word, he said, voice low. I never got to explain. You didn't need to, I replied. You made everything clear when you mocked me at that dinner party. When you said I should be grateful for you putting up with me. When you made me feel like I had to shrink to be worthy of love. I was angry, he muttered. You'd let yourself go. No, I snapped. You let go. Of decency. Of kindness. Of the woman who loved you when you had nothing. He looked down. Couldn't meet my eyes. So I delivered the final truth. I spent years thinking I wasn't enough. But now I see, you were never worthy of me. I didn't leave because I wanted revenge. I left because I finally realized I deserved peace. And with that, I walked away. Past the chandeliers. Past the guests whispering my name. Past the man who once thought he owned my narrative. I walked out into the night air. Free. Not just from him, but from every lie I used to tell myself. That I was too much. Too big. Too emotional. Too soft. No. I was just right. And now, I was unstoppable.